Trussville, Greystone, Stadium Trace. I nailed that read. Game on at Walk.
Forester TV.
Storm season is here. Make sure you have a plan of action in place right now. Greg from Pell City and Storm Restoration Roofing should be your first call when storms hit. Insurance companies love working with Storm Restoration Roofing because of Greg Nelson's name and reputation in the industry. When storms hit, call Greg Nelson. He's local, 205-542-3531. He's the home of the free no-cost roof inspection. Greg from Pell City on Facebook, 205-542-3531. It's Storm Restoration Roofing.
It's bow time. Tired of choosing between sweet and savory? Why not have both? Introducing Bojangles' new chicken and bowberry waffles. The bold Cajun chicken filet you love, now drizzled with a bowberry honey glaze and sandwiched between two warm waffles. Which means your favorite meal of the day just met your new favorite dish. And lucky for you, it's served all day. But it's only here for a limited time, so try chicken and bowberry waffles at Bojangles today. It's bow time.
Get all your favorite Next Round gear all in one place, nextround.store. From our Next Round hats to the logo tees to the all-time best-selling Y'all Can Have the Rest shirt, you can look your best by shopping with us at nextround.store. Take the Next Round anywhere with nextround.store.
Think about the best summer nights of your life. How many of those were in a great t-shirt? Visit nextround.store to get the perfect t-shirt for the next perfect southern night. Nextround.store. The memories are waiting.
Jim Dunaway, Lance Taylor, Ryan Brown. Live from the Birmingham Racecourse Casino Studios, the Next Round, presented by Bud Light, is on now.
Hey, this hour, final hour of the show, always brought to you by our friends at Champy's World Famous Fried Chicken, Highway 119 in Alabaster, Mississippi Delta recipe tamales, right there, top center. Stacked up like that, you can get a big pan of them to take to your tailgate, to your party, or to have around the house when you're watching the games this Saturday and Sunday. I get them as an appetizer when I go in there. I think it's 3 of them that you get with some slaw to start off your meal. They are so good. I hate tamales, except for those tamales. The Mississippi Delta recipe tamales with a little heat to them, they are fantastic. The chicken is brined overnight by Sterling himself with special flavors and spices, and it comes out and it's cooked to order when you go in there, and it's juicy way down to the bone, all the way to the bone. And then the hand-cut chicken fingers, huge, best chicken fingers in town. I love it all at Champy's Chicken. Go see it, Highway 119 in Alabaster. I still get texts or DMs all the time. I finally made it to Champy's for the first time. It lived up to the billing. One guy called it a banger this week. Just a great meal right there, champyschicken.com. Before we get to our picks in the pick 3 and some more talk about all the games going on, Alabama and Auburn in sort of the tweener weekend before you get to the big rivalry game next Saturday. Alabama still controls, from what I see, their own destiny, Brown. Have you got any clarification? I think they're winning in is what I keep seeing.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I have seen so many different.
For the SEC championship game,
that's what you're talking about for Atlanta.
Yeah.
No, you're talking about for Atlanta, not for the
Atlanta,
playoffs.
for the SEC championship.
No, I've seen so many different discussions on this that there is a narrow path that can leave Alabama out depending on some other outcomes.
Get all your favorite Next Round gear all in one place. Nextround.store. From our Next Round hats to the logo tees to the all-time best-selling Y'all Can Have the Rest shirt. You can look your best by shopping with us at Nextround.store. Take the Next Round anywhere with Nextround.store.
It's bow time. Tired of choosing between sweet and savory? Why not have both? Introducing Bojangles' new chicken and bowberry waffles. The bold Cajun chicken filet you love, now drizzled with a bowberry honey glaze and sandwiched between two warm waffles. Which means your favorite meal of the day just met your new favorite dish. And lucky for you, it's served all day. But it's only here for a limited time, so try chicken and bowberry waffles at Bojangles today. It's bow time.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, company truck accident, car accident, or work-related accident? Call Alabama's largest personal injury firm. Alexander TNR Trial Attorneys will fight for every dollar you deserve, and it won't cost you a dime. Trust me. What do you say, man?
Call me, Alabama.
Call 659-777-7777 or go to Shinara.com.
No representation made that the legal services provided are better than legal services provided by other attorneys.
Live brought to you by our friends at Roback. Roback.com. Promo code TNR20. Jim Dunaway. He is Tom Luginbill of ESPN. Not a whole lot to reflect on from this past weekend, especially in our part of the world in the Southeastern Conference. So we will look ahead to all the big games coming up, the playoff chase, the conference races, and all of that, with a little nod to some of the things we saw this past weekend. Lugs, it is Iron Bowl week, not only Thanksgiving week, but Iron Bowl week here. Alabama and Auburn. Alabama, a 5.5-point favorite over Auburn down at Jordan-Hare. Let's start off with what Auburn showed this past weekend against Mercer, a very good playoff FCS team that were resting some players, but still an FCS team. Deuce Knight looked fantastic, getting his first chance to play at quarterback, really starting a game for Auburn. Does that change Auburn's quarterback philosophy going into the Iron Bowl at all? Does Deuce Knight become QB2 in this situation? Do they even put a package in for him?
All right, so first off, number one, happy Thanksgiving, Jim, to you and your family and to the whole crew there.
You too.
Secondly, you're not a morning guy?
I don't know.
I saw your post. What?
I don't like mornings. I don't. I never have. I mean, I've done morning radio. I've done this, but I've done morning TV before for several years.
Yeah.
I wake up early all the time, but I've never liked it. My wife is 5 a.m. every morning, no alarm, and she loves it. She goes to bed at night right when I'm getting going. I don't get going until 8 o'clock Central Time at night. That's when I work my best. No, sir. Mornings not for me. Never have liked them. I get up early every day. I just don't like it. Nope.
It's so funny too, because when you initially get into the coaching profession, you're one of two people. You're a morning guy, or you're a night guy.
Yes.
And then depending on who you go to work for, you may have to adapt to that. And sometimes you got to be both. But that's funny. I saw your post this morning. I was like, holy smokes, I thought he was a morning guy like me all this time. And,
no.
And here you are just pushing through
Yes.
each and every day of the week. I love it.
Our show ends at 12 noon Central Time, and I don't reach my maximum mental state until about 12:30 every day. You never get the best of me on this show, ever, ever, ever.
Well, I'll tell you what, your C game is fantastic,
yeah.
Jim.
I mean,
I love it.
You should spend the afternoons with me. I am fantastic, and really around midnights when I do my best work. So
that's great.
So Alabama and Auburn at Jordan-Hare. Yeah. Does Deuce Knight, does he move the meter at all for this game, or is it all about the future for Auburn, what we saw?
Well, I think he has to move the needle a little bit, because what they put on film provides something now that you have to defend. You have to prepare for, right? You're going to have to deal with a quarterback run package. You're going to have to deal with the movement of the pocket, and whether that's going to be the zone read game, whether that's going to be quarterback lead, quarterback power, whatever that may be, you've enhanced, if you're Auburn, your package to try to attack Alabama. Now, listen, I don't want to take away from Deuce Knight. Listen, I think he's got a chance to be a special player. It is the FCS opponent. You put him in a position where you had such distinct advantages for him to succeed. And I think that's important, because you created a little bit of confidence in him, and then you also learned some things about maybe what he's capable of. Clearly, just watching him with the bird's eye view, you've got physical attributes that are very, very impressive. And going into this game, whether they start him, whether they play him, whether he has a package, whether they rotate him, I would be concerned if you're Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator at Alabama, just because it's something a little extra. It's something in a rivalry week on the road. That's a dimension that is really, really challenging. Now, if you're Alabama and you're looking at it from this perspective, you're also saying, we ain't Mercer.
That's right.
And one of the things that we've done, if we're Alabama, is we have created havoc on offenses where the quote-unquote quarterback's ability to create and improvise, for the most part, has been neutralized. They neutralized John Mateer. In many attributes, they neutralized Diego Pavia. You're going to have your moments. You're going to have your spots. But don't think for one second that Alabama is not going to have one goal in mind: play on their side of the line of scrimmage, get Auburn behind the chains, and force those two quarterbacks, whichever one it is, to make poor decisions under duress. Because what you want to do is put them in a position to make a bad decision with the football. That didn't happen versus Mercer last week. That will happen this week. But I do think the outcome of that game for Auburn and the performance of the young quarterback You said, is it a great sign for the future? Absolutely it is, because now you've got a little sample size there. But I also think in the current short term, it can provide a spark.
Yeah. Ashton Daniels, all due respect, runs the ball really well, though. So it's not like Alabama.
He ain't this guy, though.
Yeah.
He ain't this guy.
Well, I mean, it did look like Peyton Manning in an SNL skit playing with a bunch of seventh graders.
I know it did.
Yeah.
I know it did.
I mean, he was in the pocket on the first play. He's in the pocket forever, and then he decides to run, and he's running by everybody for 87 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, it was impressive. I'm not saying it wasn't impressive, but it was impressive against Mercer. And, all due respect to Mercer, they may go on to win an FCS playoff game or two. But we'll see. If Deuce Knight gets in this game at Jordan-Hare Stadium, color me shocked, but we'll see. Here's a big storyline to me. Alabama's most consistent player all season long on offense is Josh Cuevas, the tight end. Didn't dress for this game. It's a great. Parker Brailsford didn't either. It's a great time to rest people who are banged up, but it's a foot injury he suffered in practice. He was in a boot on his right foot. They'll evaluate him as the week goes on. Without Josh Cuevas, who catches balls, multiple passes every game, and was huge in the Oklahoma game. Without Josh Cuevas, that's like taking away the binky from Ty Simpson. That's his security blanket. What does Cuevas bring to this offense? And if he can't go against Auburn, man, that's a big loss offensively, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the thing with Cuevas and the tight end that's athletic and that can create matchups regardless of what personnel grouping the defense is in, I think that's where, if you don't have his services, that's where you would see the biggest impact, because you're making a choice on defense. Who are we going to line up on that guy? Are we comfortable with a linebacker playing him? Do we need to have a nickel linebacker hybrid safety guy that we feel comfortable in coverage with to match up with him? Well, if you don't have to make that decision, clearly that's an advantage for Auburn on defense. And let's see, a lot of that stuff, whether you're in a boot or what have you, not to speculate here, but a lot of that stuff can be so preventative and so precautionary, just to get you from point A to point B, that maybe he won't be what he's been within the offense, but I would say he will be. And then his mere presence, to me, to your point of having that guy that is, check down Charlie, or the guy that, kind of gets forgot about at the intermediate levels in the passing game, which is where he's made a lot of plays. You've got to have his presence there.
Yeah, all hands on deck for Alabama. Win, and everything's in front of them. Lose, and everything is gone, just like that.
Yeah.
That's what makes this rivalry game. It's why it's prime time on ABC coming up this week, 6:30 down at Jordan-Hare Stadium. The Auburn defense is a storyline as we continue to break down the Iron Bowl 2025, because Oklahoma is almost securely in the playoffs now because of their defense.
Yeah.
What is Auburn's defense? And I'll just ask you from a layman's point of view, how do they compare to Oklahoma's defense? And then we'll work from there. But when you look at Auburn's defense, first off, do they look anything like Oklahoma, which would be concerning to Alabama? And then what do you see when you look at Auburn's D?
So I think we talked about this each of the last couple of weeks. And when you came off of the South Carolina game and how South Carolina defended Alabama, then the following week, you saw LSU kind of take a same page out of the playbook. Then the Oklahoma game, similar thing. And I had talked to you a little bit about living and dying in zone defense against Ty Simpson and this football team. It's not a healthy approach. You're going to have to make some decisions. Sometimes they're going to be calculated to come after the quarterback, live in man defense, be comfortable with it, and hopefully get Ty Simpson either uncomfortable or off platform, where you don't just allow him to play pitch and catch and throw the ball all over the field. That's Auburn's entire mentality on defense. Now, I don't think Auburn has played great football in the defensive back end. And against this group of wide receivers for Alabama, it's going to have to be probably a best type of performance scenario in the defensive secondary when it comes to being sticky and closing down windows. But from a front perspective, I think that's where the game is going to be won and lost for Alabama up front and for Ty Simpson. And that is to try to create confusion up front through what I would call simulated pressures, or looks where we can try to visualize this, looks where you got 5-6 guys aligned along the line of scrimmage, got guys walked up in the A gap or the B gap, and the look is to try to put them in a position to say, are we going to get a 3-man rush here? Are we going to get a 4-man rush here? Are we going to get an all-out cover 0? And whatever it may be, where are the guys coming from? That's where Brent Venables in Oklahoma are so good at getting you in a bind, because they will pressure you and they will rush you, but you don't necessarily know which ones are coming and where they're coming from. And I think DJ Durkin does a really good job of essentially doing the same thing. Now, once you've established that, what you can't do against Ty Simpson is give him the same defensive look post-snap. Now, there's going to be times where you're just going to have to live in what you've called and say, hey, we think we're going to win up front here, and we're going to get home, okay? And if he gets us, he gets us. But I do believe that he has gotten so good, Ty Simpson that is, at being able to consistently decipher what he's seeing post-snap, that you've got to cloud that picture. And remember, when you cloud that picture on the back end and you feel like you can affect the quarterback with the front, you may not allow Ty Simpson to have enough time to work through that, right? And now all of a sudden he's either flushed and he's out of the pocket, or he's having to get the ball out of his hands sooner because he's under duress or he's got people in his face. But maybe most importantly, and I think this is something that has probably been studied fairly heavily, if you're going to knock Ty Simpson in one area, I think that the ball security within the pocket, Jim, when he's evading or trying to move he has not done a great job of securing the ball, keeping 2 hands on the ball, and just living to play the next down. Been a little too loose there, in my opinion, Jim.
Yeah, you take away the rushing yards against Georgia's. Who they play? Eastern Illinois. Take away the rushing yards against Eastern Illinois this week, and Alabama's run game is still trending towards historic low of 1955 or something like that.
Yeah.
Auburn's defense is really good against the run, but we've talked throughout the year, if Alabama doesn't run it, Auburn's rush defense isn't as big of a factor. So it's so much pressure on Ty Simpson to go there and those receivers and that offensive line to throw the ball to win. His accuracy since that South Carolina game, where they sort of, changed the way you defend Alabama, hasn't been the same as it was before then. His passer ratings continue to drop. It was 141 at Georgia. It's been 120 to 150 since then, almost to the 118 that it was in his first start against Florida State. Is it just the schemes, or have you noticed something different about Ty Simpson and his passer accuracy that has sort of declined as maybe the competition and the pressure of November has heated up a little bit?
Well, you just answered the question. I think, not to overcomplicate the analysis here on this one, the level of competition and the defenses that they have taken on during that stretch have been a different animal, right? And but also, as each week has worked on and the run games continue to be a struggle, so much more of the output of the offense in the end game has fallen almost entirely on his shoulders. And I don't care if you're Ty Simpson. If this was Indiana right now and they couldn't run the ball a lick, you'd see Fernando Mendoza dipping a little bit, right? If Julian Sand in Ohio State couldn't run the football a lick, right, you'd see Julian Sand taking a bit of a step back. I just think that's a natural part of the position when you don't have something to rely upon to help take off some of that pressure and balance out the offense. So I do think maybe more so than anything else, just the uptick in the fronts that they've been playing and people's willingness to say, hey, we'll stay in man-to-man defense here a little bit. We think we can win a couple of these because we think if we don't get home every time, we're going to get home enough to affect him. And I think that's happened. And in fairness, credit those defenses. But I hate when I hear the term, Ty Simpson is regressing. I think that is so overblown. I just think that the circumstances have changed fairly dramatically, and it's taken its toll on the offense.
Tom Luginbill, ESPN, with us here Monday Morning Live, brought to you by roback.com, promo code TNR20. Because of where the offense has been trending, Lugs, We saw a little change this week. They tried it out for this Eastern Illinois game. Ryan Grubb comes down from the coach's box, and he's on the sidelines this past week. Yeah. And Kalen DeBoer said afterwards, it's something we've been talking about, maybe trying out. We thought it was a good time to try it out. We'll discuss and we'll see if we're going to do it going forward. But it was about communication and adjusting and being able to look your player in the eye and talk to him on a face-to-face basis, and maybe a little motivation, maybe a little help on reading, looking at the iPad together. You've coached the position, you played the position. How important do you think it is going into that situation at Jordan-Hare Stadium for this game, maybe for Ryan Grubb to be down there with Ty Simpson?
Well, I do believe in that face-to-face interaction, gauging body language, gauging the look in the eye, being able to talk face-to-face, sit next to each other on that bench, go through that iPad. The iPad's become a game changer in college football for coach-to-player communication. I do think that's legitimate. Now, if you're Ryan Grubb, though, you also – what is your vantage point that you're most comfortable with when it comes to actually calling the offense? When you're standing there on the sideline and you're looking at it from a linear perspective, and I can tell you this, not just from a coaching perspective, but from a broadcasting perspective, having spent 10 years down there as a field analyst and giving my analysis from that view versus giving it from the booth, that's an entirely different bird's eye view, because you see things, space changes everything. And when you don't see the space because you're linear, I think that can be something that you have to be really comfortable with as a play caller. And you have to have people upstairs that you are so confident in that are relaying the information that you no longer have because you're on the field. And in this type of game versus an overmatched opponent, it was a great opportunity to kind of try it out and get a sense of what they feel most comfortable with. But I also believe this may have been tied a little bit to Austin Mack and Keelan Russell too.
Yeah, that's a great
because
point.
You now have that opportunity with those young players that haven't played. You knew going into the game the plan was going to be to play those guys and play them a lot. And you got to accomplish that. And then to be able to walk those guys over after a series, talk through what they saw, all of those sorts of things. I think it wasn't just about Ty Simpson. I think it was about the offense and the communication with the quarterback room as a whole.
Yeah, I would say this, though. If it is something we see against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, having Ryan Grubb down on the sidelines, he's been there long enough now to where maybe he's comfortable with somebody else upstairs with their eyes at seeing something. And then the iPad, again, you can use those on the sidelines. That gives you that up-top view instantly during you can now almost script the next series as you sit next to Ty Simpson and look at it from that view you have up there. You don't get it instantly, but during the next defensive series for Alabama, he's able to sit over there on the sideline. That'll be interesting to watch. I don't know if we'll know before we get to Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday night whether Grubb is going to go sidelines. Maybe it's something Kalen DeBoer addresses in his news conference today, or Ryan Grubb. He'll talk as well. Tackling for Alabama's defense. It was not up to par in the Florida State loss. It got really, 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 really good. Had some moments that it slipped against Oklahoma in the loss. Late in the year, getting back to the basics, with these receivers and that running back in Jeremiah Cobb and a running quarterback in Ashton Daniels, how important, tackling both ways. You've already mentioned Auburn, but for Alabama's defense, they really have to be buttoned up on that swarm defense tackling, don't they?
Big time, because if you miss, there's nobody behind you. They are so aggressive up the field in coming after people, and even in early run blitzes where you're blitzing into the gap where you think you're not blitzing necessarily rush the passer. It's an early down stoppage at the line of scrimmage, and if you miss or if you free a gap, there's nobody behind you. So I do think that part of it's critical. And at the end of the day, too, I think you got to be really, really careful in the play action passing game when it relates to Cam Coleman downfield, because when he's covered, he's really not covered. He's one of those guys. And if you're going to be willing to take some chances over the top and you're going to play out there on an island one-on-one, you're going to have to expect your secondary, whether you get home up front or not, you're going to have to expect your secondary. You're going to tell those, hey, guys, you're going to have to make a play on the ball. And it's going to be thrown over you. And if you keep the play in front of you and it's a 50-50 deal, they might get a couple. But I think that's as much of a worry to me as it would be the tackling side of it, because I think that Auburn in this particular matchup does not have an advantage in the offensive line. I don't think this is an Auburn team that's just going to line up and handle a heavy box. In fact, I'm going to be interested to see how, if they chose to do so, if Alabama sat there and said, okay, we're really concerned about these receivers. Well, we think we can handle the line of scrimmage with a light box. And let's see them prove that we can't.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. How many can you control their run game with the fewest amount of numbers that helps you in the pass coverage, so you may dedicate more to the pass coverage. It's a great, fascinating thing to watch. It's the same thing we watched flipped around with Alabama against Oklahoma. How light could Oklahoma keep the box, right, and be aggressive, either rushing the passer or defending the pass? It's an interesting numbers game to watch. This Auburn team, Lugs, their record's 5-6, but I just go back to the common opponents. Both teams lost to Oklahoma. Auburn lost by 7 in Norman, Alabama 2 at home. Auburn lost by 10 to Georgia. Alabama beat Georgia by 3. Alabama on the road for that one. But Missouri and Vandy, Alabama won both of them. Auburn lost both of them in overtime. This Auburn team is not your typical 5-6 team. A little bit better than their normal 5-6 team. They're that close to being a different squad.
And that's what has got to be concerning if you're an Auburn fan, is they haven't proven they can win a close game. They haven't proven they can finish. Alabama's proven that. Auburn's been there, but they haven't had the production or the execution to be able to close it out. And at the end of the day, it's as simple as that. And so even though they're playing at home, if they find themselves in a one-possession game late here, I think two things you got to look at. Could Auburn take a closing drive and get the ball in the end zone and finish it? All right. And then secondly, from Alabama's perspective, and I think this is really important, what happens if the kicking game comes into play for Alabama?
Well, it's been bad for Auburn too, but it has become, the Talty situation has become a pressure point for Alabama fans. But Auburn has been as shaky, yes. Yeah,
and again, if that one possession game thing, and I've watched this a lot because with my coverage in the ACC, there's been so many one possession games in that league, and then you start, it kind of prompts you to look across the league everywhere else. And we've talked about this before, is that the margin is so razor thin now in terms of talent dispersal across the board that, it wasn't that long ago where Georgia took the field, right, or Alabama took the field, and the game was over before they even kicked off.
Yep.
And those days are almost, I don't want to say they're gone, but there's very little of that happening right now. So Auburn's got to prove that they can win a close game.
Give me a Bama advantage and an Auburn advantage. On if Alabama wins, it'll be because of this. If Auburn wins, it'll be because of that.
If Alabama wins, it will be because they don't turn over the football. If Auburn wins, it will be because they have created turnovers and didn't turn over the football.
Yeah.
Is Alabama the better team? Does Alabama have probably the better roster? Yes. Is Auburn's personnel good enough to win the game? Absolutely. Which quarterback do you trust? All right. Which quarterback at the end of the day is going to be in the best position to not make an error, not be foolish with the football? The younger Auburn gets on at the quarterback position, if they happen to play Deuce night quite a bit. If they don't, all right, the penchant for protecting the football in a rivalry game on the road, if Alabama does that, they win the game.
Tom Luginbill, ESPN, ACC Network work too, and you see him all over our platforms all the time. We appreciate him being with us. A lot more in college football to get to. A reminder, our show brought to you by Roback, Roback.com, perfect for the holiday season. Promo code TNR20 gets you 20% off that first order. Go to Roback.com, Roback.com, and use the promo code TNR20. And I'll tell you, Lugs, this Lane Kiffin decision before we get back. I mean, we gave you 24 good minutes of actual game on the field. So we'll squeeze in Kiffin here and then get back to the games on the field, starting with Ole Miss, Mississippi State. 7-year, $90 million. Brandon Marcello says $98 million. I think it'll be 7 years, $100 million before it's all said and done. That works out to about $14.2 a year. For Lane Kiffin, wherever he goes. He seems to be at peace. He's got roots. He can have a legacy at Ole Miss, but yet he continues to flirt with this decision, and it is becoming very LeBron decision-like. They're going to do it after the Egg Bowl now. Keith Carter and Ole Miss announces. To me, if you're staying, man, why are you putting this off? Just make the announcement. Yeah. Now we're going to have a decision after the Egg Bowl. This is so dramatic. It really is watering down my love for Lane Kiffin a little bit here.
Well, it's interesting because I don't think anybody can discount the job that Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss. If you look at this job and you said, okay, 10 years ago, is this one of the better jobs in college football? You'd say no. Well, in today's landscape, it is probably a pretty good job. Another area you got to give him great credit in is he was so far ahead and so far more prepared when he saw what was coming with name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal. He attacked it and got ahead of it before anybody else, right? So he had a plan in place and he accelerated the process, which has led them to this point. At the end of the day, he's not coaching for money. He's not coaching to put food on the table. This is a decision either about a new challenge or, in his estimation, could you ever get to the SEC championship game or win the SEC championship at Ole Miss? And if he doesn't feel the answer to that question is yes, and he does feel the answer to that question is yes at, LSU, let's just say, let's use LSU. I think the other thing, forget about the money part of it. He's already created generational wealth, but I keep going back to this one thing. He has total and complete control of everything that happens within that Ole Miss football program, including the allocation of money. So how many hands are going to be in the cookie jar if you move elsewhere, right? Are you going to be able to say and to control your collective, your settlement, any NIL outside sources, where it's distributed, how it's done? Is there somebody in a suit and tie in an office administratively or on a board of regents or at the athletic director level, the president level, that can interfere with that? And he's got to get some very concrete answers to that. And I think they've got to be in writing regardless of where the money is, because he currently has that right now. Because remember, Jim, it wasn't that long ago where power brokers and boosters and alumni and this and that, they had some power. They might have some influence, maybe a little say, depending on the institution. Well, now they're like owners.
Yep.
They're owners.
Yeah.
And so that changes the dynamic. So if that takes away all of that ability to control the football program, you have to ask yourself, if you're Lane Kiffin, is that something that I want to get into? But I don't want to knock Lane Kiffin here because I think he's done a remarkable job. But we're also talking about a coach that has not played for a championship, has not won a championship as a head coach, right? But the pursuit of him, you would think that he's got multiple championships at multiple destinations, and that's not the case here.
Yeah. No, I agree. And if you leave in the middle of a playoff run, timing is everything, man. If you leave in the middle of a playoff run, how am I going to look you in the face at the next job if you go to LSU or maybe Florida and trust that you're gonna be bought in? I've already seen you as a coordinator bail out on Alabama to where you got fired by Nick Saban after a Washington semifinal win, to where you didn't even coach in the national championship game because you were doing such a crappy job as a coordinator before you took your head coaching job. I just don't understand, if you leave now in this mess in the middle of a playoff run, how I can respect you at your next location. I would never sleep comfortably if I was an LSU fan or a Florida fan if you end up at the next play, if you bail on this team in the middle of a playoff run. Timing's every time. It's everything. Sometimes you don't get the opportunity to leave when you think maybe you want to because of the situation where it is right now at work. And his situation is, man, you've built this thing at Ole Miss. You've got all this stuff going for you in your family, your personal life, and with that football program, ride this thing out. But he's got the drama going. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Can Mississippi State win this game? Which, by the way, egg on face if Mississippi State wins this one for Lane Kiffin.
Oh my goodness. I want to say no, because the difference between this Ole Miss team than the one at this exact same time a year ago, this team appears to be hyper-focused and mature when it comes to handling clutter and distractions. They have not been affected on the field by what's been taking place off of it. And a year ago, this was a team that floundered versus, Florida, LSU, And now this team seems to be able to handle this moment. I'm really impressed with this team's demeanor and their maturity. I would be really surprised if this was a team, and I know it's a rivalry game, but I think Ole Miss has so much going for them, and they know it, and they know what's riding on it. And I don't know if the quarterback position, and if Mississippi State has to play Kamario Taylor, whether it's Blake Shapen, I don't know if they are a football team. And it's the improvement that they have shown, and they have shown improvement under Jeff Lebby in year 2. I just don't think this is a good matchup for them.
Oklahoma needs to stick the landing to secure their spot in the playoffs. It seems to be that simple for the Sooners. Here comes LSU, likely to start Michael Van Buren. Garrett Nussmeier hasn't played since November the 8th. He's got that abdominal issue that he battled through for most of the year. Now it appears he has shut it down. We'll see if Van Buren gets a start, if Nussmeier can come out of the locker room and try to save LSU in a rivalry game with Oklahoma at the end. This Oklahoma offense, even against Missouri this past 17-6, they win the game. This offense under 300 yards again, and 87 of their 276 was on one play. Is this offense good enough to do anything against LSU and then in the playoffs?
I mean, against LSU, I think they can. I think they're good enough, and I think they're the better team. In the playoff, I think it's going to be difficult. We've talked about it all year long, their inability to run the football, particularly if John Mateer is not involved in the run game. You take him out of the mix, then they've really got some glaring issues there. Defensively, they're the team that keeps them in it, and you have to give Oklahoma a ton of credit, though, for this gauntlet, man. Maybe it hasn't been pretty at times. They've found ways to win. It's been resilient. They've been in a playoff game each and every week. They've answered that bell. I think they'll take care of business versus LSU because they're the better team. And LSU, to me, I don't want to say LSU's checked out, but this is clearly a disinterested LSU football team right now with everything in flux. I like Michael Van Buren as a young quarterback. In fact, I was really surprised when he left Mississippi State because he played pretty well for Jeff Lebby last year as a true freshman when he was thrust into duty. But, boy, that was a tough game to watch last week versus Western Kentucky.
More likely matchup in the playoffs in the first round is Notre Dame at Oklahoma or maybe Alabama at Oklahoma. You think Oklahoma wins either one of those games?
No, I don't. I don't think. And again, when you go back to how that Oklahoma-Alabama game played out, I thought Alabama really actually dominated the game outside of one category. And that one category happens to be the most important category. And Notre Dame right now, I think they're really starting to hit their stride and play really good football. That running back at Notre Dame, Jim, is just an absolute difference maker. He's different than anybody else in the country at that position right now. And they finally started. And listen, the Notre Dame schedule, don't get me wrong, has not been what it probably needs to be overly enamored with Notre Dame. But you can't discount the fact that they're actually playing winning football, and they're playing their best football at the most important time.
Yeah. You mean beating 3-8 Syracuse, 1-10 Boston College, 2-9 Arkansas, and 2-9 Purdue?
You know who they got this week?
Stanford. 3-something Stanford, 4-something Stanford. Yeah. Who beat Cal this past weekend and got Justin Wilcox fired. So maybe Stanford can wake up the echoes there. I truthfully, Notre Dame, Alabama right now, if they played each other, that'd be a tough matchup for the Tide, I think. That'd be an interesting game.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'm sure that's something they're debating in the playoff committee. We'll get a new one more before, actually two more. We'll get one Tuesday night to see where Notre Dame and Alabama stack up after an uneventful weekend that had the top 14 teams in the college football playoff rankings all win this past weekend. A&M's locked for the playoffs. They get a rivalry game with Texas. Arch Manning, he caught a pass. He ran one in. He threw one. No Texas player had ever done all three of those things. So here comes Texas. One last thing to save this season. They seem to be out of the playoff discussion, but beating your rival is huge. Can A&M win in Austin? What do you think?
I think so because of this one area that would concern me if I'm a Texas fan, and that is every time Texas, and throughout the course of the season, this has plagued them. But when they've had a big game and can't run the football, they can't win the game. Couldn't run it on the road against Florida at Gainesville, lost. 23 yards rushing versus Georgia, couldn't win the game. If you're Texas A&M, where they do best is get off the field on third down, and they win up front. This entire game, if you're Texas A&M, you're saying the only way we're losing this game is if Arch Manning beats us. And Arch Manning is going to have to beat us without Texas running the football. That's got to be the mantra for Texas A&M defensively, because that's been the recipe with the other losses with Texas offensively. And it's been a tough year in the offensive line for Texas. They've been inexperienced. They've had to play some young guys. You lost a first rounder at left tackle. They've dealt with injuries almost the entirety of the season at the running back spot, and it's put a lot of pressure on the young quarterback. And in those big moments, when they haven't been able to balance that out, it has not worked out well for Texas on offense. I think that's the game within the game.
It appears Georgia Tech blew their playoff shot by losing to Pitt 42-28 at home, 28-0 with 11 minutes to go in the second quarter. Tech fought back, but they still lose it. Here comes Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium inside rivalry game there. For Georgia, they seem to be playing their best football right now, and Georgia Tech seems, especially defensively, seems to be playing their worst football right now. Is that fair?
Well, there's no question. Yeah, Jim, Tech is reeling, and it really goes back to the NC State loss where they gave up 583 yards. Then they beat BC, but they give up 537 yards. And then the defensive woes continued versus Pitt. Now, that Pitt offense, obviously they didn't have a great outing versus Notre Dame, but that's a Pitt offense that scored on just about everybody they've played behind a true freshman quarterback in Mason Heinchel. But this time it wasn't just the defense for Georgia Tech. This was the first time all year long where Georgia Tech could not establish the identity of the game. One of the things that Georgia Tech has been so good at is they come out of the gate, they establish the run, they get Haynes King going, run and pass, stay ahead of the chains, don't beat themselves, and then they've been able to overcome defensive deficiencies because of that. This past weekend, they came out of the gate, couldn't establish the run, had penalties early, and all of a sudden Haynes King was a different quarterback when Georgia Tech couldn't dictate the style of play of the game. Then the turnovers started to hit. Then all of a sudden Georgia Tech started to press. So when the Georgia Tech defense has struggled, the offense has been able to bail them out until this past weekend. And you have to wonder now, has that bubble burst a little bit for Brent Key? Because Pitt got after them and won at the line of scrimmage. Well, Georgia, because we all remember this game a year ago, and I don't think Georgia approaches this game the way they approached it a year ago. And Georgia's playing their best football and is the better team. But if Georgia Tech comes out and can't establish who they are and what they are, I mean, they've got the most noticeable identity. When they're rolling, they have the most noticeable identity on offense of almost any team in college football. When you take that away, Georgia Tech goes from having a great identity to flailing. They cannot execute, they cannot perform, and clearly the defense isn't good enough to bail them out. I would be worried sick right now if I was Brent Key, the way Georgia is playing on offense with the way they're playing on defense.
I think Diego Pavia would get my vote for SEC Player of the Year. You think he makes it to New York as a Heisman finalist the way he's playing right now?
I certainly hope so. And I remember distinctly us talking about the result of the Vanderbilt and Alabama game. And the difference between that game and now is all of a sudden Vanderbilt has an explosive passing game.
Yep.
Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia are pushing the ball downfield, and their wideouts are making plays left and right. Whereas leading into that Alabama game, this was a run, Diego Pavia make a couple of plays, pull a rabbit out of the hat, play good defense, don't hurt yourself, and you're going to be in every game in the fourth quarter, and you're going to win some of them. Now, all of a sudden, they've got some explosive elements, and when you go into this matchup versus Tennessee, who say all you want about Florida, okay, but Florida all year long has been a good defensive football team. And Tennessee just put up 31 on Florida in Gainesville. So, I mean, those explosive plays I talk about for Vanderbilt are going to be paramount in this matchup. And Vandy's looking at this game going, gosh, if we win this game, all right, now we're looking at the result of Alabama-Auburn. Okay. We're looking at the result of what potentially could come out of the Big 12. I don't think Vanderbilt can do anything about where the committee would place Miami, because the committee 2 weeks ago already made their feelings known about Miami when they ranked them at 15, knowing they virtually had zero shot of playing in the ACC championship game, and then bumped them up last week. What are they going to do with them this week? And it clearly tells me that the way the committee is thinking, the ACC champ, Miami, what would that then do to Vanderbilt if they get this win?
Yeah. Miami does have to play Pittsburgh in a cold weather game, a wet cold weather game. So it's not a given for Miami there. So keep your hopes alive if you're Vandy. Can Michigan make it 5 in a row against Ohio State? Bryce Underwood played a little bit better this past weekend. Yeah. Andrew Marsh is the legit deal, but their running backs are hurt. Justice Haynes is done. We don't know if Marshall will be able to go for Michigan. This is not a full all-hands-on-deck strength Michigan team as they go and play Ohio State.
You just wonder if Michigan and the game, the big game, the team up north calls them Ohio, and it's the biggest game of every person that lives in those two states' lives. It almost seems like it's more important than making the college football playoff or winning a national championship. That would concern me a little bit just because of the recent history of how Ohio State has handled that. But gosh, Jim, in order to win this game, if you're Michigan, I don't care if it's played at home, away, or in a parking lot, Bryce Underwood's going to have to play out of his mind. And we just talked about the last 5 to 6 weeks of the schedule of Notre Dame. Look at who Michigan's played. And they're quietly 9-2. But, I mean, we're talking about Northwestern, Purdue, Michigan State. They just whooped up on Maryland. Bryce Underwood has improved. He's gotten better, don't get me wrong. But you're right. This isn't the full complement of the offense that they'd like to be bringing in the game. And listen, have stranger things happened? Of course they have. I remember having the Michigan-Ohio State game, and I'm standing on the sideline, and, you know, J.T. Barrett goes down after he had already replaced Braxton Miller. And then guess who comes in the game? Cardale Jones. Hadn't played the entire year. And the next thing you know, they roll off and win a national championship. And I just see this game as being so mentally such a strong part of the outcome, particularly for Ohio State. But the way Ohio State's played, are they going to show any warts? Are they going to show any flaws? Because when they set out Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, and it didn't matter. The defense has played lights out. So if you're Bryce Underwood and you're Michigan, you better play the best game that you have played to this point, I think, to even have a chance to win it, even though it's in Ann Arbor.
I wake up so early to come in here to talk to you, and you're going to bring up 2014 Ohio State to me and what they did to Alabama at the Superdome. By the way,
a deep memory.
By the way, another Lane Kiffin mismanaged game. They start off so good, and then he gets away from doing good things and starts calling bad plays. Yeah. Come on, Lane Kiffin. ACC is pretty simple. If SMU and Virginia win, they're in the ACC championship game. 60 minutes, one of them goes to the playoffs. If either one of them loses, it becomes chaotic. We won't get into 1,000 different scenarios. But there's SMU, man. Win, and they're in the ACC championship game. And then win again, they're in the playoffs.
Well, and the thing is, they're actually playing the best football of anybody in the ACC right now. Kevin Jennings, coming off of that bye week at SMU, was literally a superhero in their game this past weekend. He was so dominant, and it was the Kevin Jennings show. And they're so athletic. Defensively, they create turnovers. They create negative plays. If they get into the ACC championship game, and let's just say it, you know, obviously, whoever it's against, let's just say it's against Virginia, and they beat Virginia, they represent the best hope, in my opinion. All right, unless Miami's just playing lights out, beats Pitt, makes it. Miami's going to have the best overall roster to try to make a dent in the first round. But the most dangerous team is SMU right now. They're the most dangerous team in the ACC. And if they end up pulling this thing off, that first round matchup could be really, really interesting.
All right, the way I see it, 7 teams are locked into the playoffs, and then add the ACC champion in the group of 5. So it feels like we're playing for 3 spots. I got Ohio State in, Indiana in, A&M in, Georgia in, Oregon in, Ole Miss, and Texas Tech. Virtually all locks for me.
Yeah.
And then throw in an ACC champion, throw in a group of 5 that leaves 3 spots. Right now, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama. Do you feel like Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama can stick the landing here?
Depends on what happens in the outcome of the Big 12 championship game. In my opinion, just in terms of what they would do with the loser of that game. Now the committee would view that. We've talked a little bit about Miami, but I think, Alabama, just take care of business. Just take care of business. But I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with the Big 12, because Texas Tech, as you mentioned, what if Texas Tech gets in a scenario in the Big 12 championship and they lose? Does the committee treat that similar to how they treated SMU a year ago in the ACC championship game, and keeping them in the playoff, recognizing the season that they had to get in there? So I still think it's a little bit murky, but I do think that it's highly probable. And again, here's the deal on Notre Dame and Miami. We can't gloss over this. If you finish 10-2 and you have a head-to-head, how can you ignore it?
You can't.
I mean, if you Jim, if you look at any sport, it doesn't matter what the sport is, and you look at tie-breaking scenarios, what's the number one tie-breaking scenario in every sport?
It's head-to-head.
It's head-to-head.
Yep.
And so if you're going to take one of them, you better take both of them.
Yeah. Here's my wild prediction.
And I think that's something that needs to be, viewed as well.
And you have to do the same thing with Oklahoma and Alabama, so you can't have Alabama in and Oklahoma out. So here's my wild scenario for you. If Alabama wins at Auburn, they go to the SEC championship game. Mm-hmm. And win or lose, I feel like they're in at that point, which is wild to say. If the Big 12 upset happens in the Big 12 championship game, I think both of them get in, and the Miami loss to Notre Dame drags Notre Dame out. And you can't put both of them in, so I think you take both of them out at that point. Notre Dame and Miami both go out.
Even if they both win?
Even if Notre Dame and Miami went out, 10-2, both out.
If that were to happen, depending on head-to-head, Notre Dame would be in the most danger first.
Yep.
Do you agree?
Yeah. Well, you can't put them both in. So to me, you got to leave them both out. It's Baylor. It's Baylor TCU back in the day. Well,
and remember too, you've got that group of 5 team lingering there, which looks like, as each day passes by, and I've got Navy and Memphis. Boy, I just feel like the group of 5 can't have nice things, man, because every time the American's been set up to have a front runner, that team always seems to falter. And now we might be looking at Tulane in North Texas and the winner of that game going.
That's right. Interesting. A lot of football still to play before we get to Selection Sunday, but it's rivalry weekend. Thankful for you, Lugs. Always have been since you joined Brown and me that very first time on AM 690 back in the day, and you've been with us a long, long time. I always enjoy the conversation. I know our viewers do too, man. I appreciate you getting up with us.
Appreciate you as always. It's been an honor throughout the years, man. Have a great, happy Thanksgiving, and say hello to the fellas.
That was almost a retirement speech there for me, man. I'm not that old yet, man. Don't retire me yet, Luke's. Through the years.
Me neither.
Through the years. All right, man. That's Monday Morning Live. We'll do it again next Monday after Rivalry Week. Until next time, y'all. The next round starts in about 12 minutes.